announcements.
ROBBIE. Yep.
In the back. Change.
Hi, Tara, welcome. Hi, Dinesh. Hi, Carol.
A minute or two longer. Now I've lost my blank screen. They were there. Now they've all disappeared. Okay, now they're back. Okay, we're ready to begin. Any announcements?
Actually, yes, there's one announcement.
Okay.
This is Linda from way in the back and doing AV for those of you on Zoom and YouTube, welcome, as well as everyone in the Kadampa. So this is our last class for the spiritual teacher. Then we're going to be on a 3-week break. We will start back up again on Monday, July 24th. And that will be Death and Rebirth, my favorite module, that along with Karma, my two favorite modules. And Steep Smith will be teaching that. Steep is a long-time member of the Kadampa Center and very, very knowledgeable. She's a wonderful teacher. So mark your calendars for Monday, July 24th. And coming up this Sunday, we will be celebrating His Holiness the Dalai Lama's birthday. And so join us Sunday at our usual Dharma connection time, which is 10:30, for a big birthday party celebration. There'll even be birthday cake. So that's at 10:30 this Sunday. All right, hope to see y'all there.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Yeah, I would like to also recommend that module. That's a really important subject and a fascinating one, and it's highly recommended. Okay, so welcome. This is our last class in the module Spiritual Teacher. We'll begin with our prayers in the Gold Prayer Book on pages 34 and 35. And I wanted to mention especially what's labeled the seven limb prayer, because this is really, ideally, we're doing this in relation to the spiritual teacher. If we have someone who we regard as a teacher, we imagine that we are making these seven limbs or seven requests or seven invocations or seven actions towards them. The first line is prostrations, which does not mean that we're worshiping the teacher or holding them up as great as a godlike figure. It just means that we are acknowledging the respect that we hold for them and the tradition and the lineage and the knowledge that they embody. So we prostrate, which means bow down, and we can either do it with our body or with our speech, or we can imagine doing it with our mind. So if we have a teacher, we imagine we're doing this to the teacher. Then the second line, we imagine or visualize that we're making offerings to the teacher, okay? Not so that the teacher can accumulate wealth or material objects or anything like that, but so that the teacher can accomplish their goal of helping others. So we make offerings of anything that may possibly assist the teacher in achieving that goal. Then we confess. Okay, if we grew up Catholic, this may sound familiar, but we confess our negative actions to the teacher. Negative actions means those that are done that actually harm others or are done with the intention of harming others. That's what we mean when we refer to negative actions, things that we've done since both in this lifetime, and if we accept the idea of previous lifetimes, we confess those actions from previous lifetimes that we probably don't even remember, but we understand that we have committed. Not because we're a bad person, but we just acknowledge reality. Okay, then we rejoice in the merit of all holy ordinary beings. This is the positive actions, actions that help or are done with the intention of helping others. And that includes things that we've done, that other people at Kadampa Center or at our place of employment or in our family, and especially our teacher have done. So we rejoice in their positive actions. Then we request the teacher to remain until the end of cyclic existence, which means until all living beings have achieved enlightenment, which would imply throughout countless lifetimes. We request the teacher to turn the wheel of Dharma, which means continuing to teach. The teacher is under no obligation or requirement to teach. They do that out of their wish to help others. So we request that they continue to teach. And then we dedicate the merit, the positive energy that we've created and that everyone else has created to the great enlightenment, which means the enlightenment of all living beings. So in Buddhism, you're allowed to kind of, just by rejoicing and dedicating the merit that others have created, you get some of that positive energy yourself. So you're allowed to piggyback on the good works of others. It's not just your own. So if we have a teacher or someone we see in that role, we visualize that we're doing these 7 requests to that teacher. If we don't have a teacher, we do it with the understanding by thinking this way, we're creating the causes to meet teachers in the future. So that's just a little explication of this one prayer that we typically do here on Monday evenings, and we do it on Sunday mornings. And you'll see different versions of it, but it's typically referred to as the 7-limb prayer. And it's a very simple form of what may be called Guru Yoga. So we'll start with taking refuge in bodhicitta on page 34. We'll read that together 3 times in English. Then we'll read the 4 immeasurables, and we'll pause a little bit after each line. Then we'll go through the 7-limb prayer with the understanding of the visualization that I just discussed, and then we'll finish with the mandala offering. And we're doing the prayers to prepare our mind for the meditation that we'll be doing afterwards. It's kind of like said to be like tilling the field that we're going to cast the seeds upon. If we just rush in here after work and our busy life and don't take the effort and the time to calm our mind a little bit, the seeds of the discussion that follow may not take very well, but this helps to prepare our mind. So we'll start with taking refuge in bodhicitta. I go for refuge, until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Just pause for a minute and think about what that wish is. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time. And rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence. And turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniryatayami. Okay, so now we'll do our first meditation session. We begin by establishing our posture, either sitting on a cushion on the floor or in a chair, whichever one we're sitting on. Our back is a little bit straighter than we normally sit, not rigid, but it's said that we have a regal posture. Our back is straight. Our head is straight on our shoulders, maybe just a couple degrees in front of the vertical. Our eyes are either just slightly open or lightly closed. Our mouth is lightly closed, with the tongue on the hard palate behind our upper teeth. Our jaw not clenched but relaxed. Our shoulders down and a little bit back so our chest is open. Our upper arms are away from our torso, and we have our right hand on left, thumbs touching slightly below the level of the navel. If we're sitting in a chair, our feet are flat on the floor or on a cushion, if that's more comfortable. If we're on a cushion, we're towards the front third of the cushion, not back, but towards the front third, so our pelvis is open and our legs are in a position that we find stable and comfortable. So scan your body starting at the top of your head, working down. Identify any sources of discomfort or tension and address them now so they don't become a recurring theme of the meditation to follow. The whole point of the posture is that it's stable and self-maintaining, so we don't have to pay attention to it over and over again. And we begin the meditation by taking 3 deep breaths from the abdomen, the stomach expanding on the in-breath and contracting towards the spine on the out-breath. So just do that slowly 3 times. And now we allow our breathing to return to its normal pattern, and we establish our motivation for the meditation and discussion that are to follow. And as much as possible, we generate the bodhicitta motivation, the great mind, the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of others. And that may not come naturally to us. We may have to put a little bit of effort into that. But as much as we can, generate the bodhicitta motivation that I'm doing this meditation and I'm here for this discussion so that I can be of benefit to others, so that I can develop my mind in its qualities of wisdom and compassion in a way that will benefit everyone, which includes myself. Without exception, every living being. And having set our motivation, we now begin the actual meditation, a very simple concentration meditation. We place our mind, our awareness, on the physical sensation of the breath moving in and out through our nostrils. Just the sensation of air moving in and out. Mind on the physical tactile sensation. Mind directly perceiving. Mind, we could say, becoming familiar with or knowing, so that there is really no difference between the two. There's no object and subject duality, but merely one experience. Direct perception of the movement of the breath. And every time our mind moves off to another perception, a sound, or a memory, or a physical sensation, we just set that aside and come back to the breath. And we can end our meditation with a dedication. We can acknowledge that we've done something a little bit out of the ordinary, that our mind has changed slightly, that an impression has been made on our mind stream by this meditation. And we think, may that positive energy not be lost or dissipated, but may it remain in our mind, in our consciousness, in a way that ripens in the future to benefit all living beings. And you may relax your concentration. Okay, so we've been talking about the teacher, the guru, or the lama, and I've just hope we've demystified that concept that sometimes carries a lot of baggage. Just to review some of the things that we've talked about. We'll all have many different teachers, both in our lifetime and on our spiritual path, whether we're strictly on the Buddhist path, or whatever path, we'll have lots of teachers. We won't have just one teacher. Our relationship with each of those teachers will be different, and it can range all the way from, as we discussed, someone who's just imparting information in an academic setting, in an academic course, to someone who's teaching us the basics of Buddhism, or how to meditate, or various meditation techniques, all the way through the relationship we may have with a teacher whom we take a tantric initiation from, which is a sort of high-powered meditation that we're given permission to do by the tantric teacher, to what's sometimes referred to as having a root guru or root lama, whom is someone we've identified as being our core teacher that we always look to for spiritual guidance. And our relationship with each of those teachers is going to be different, and it'll be individualized. And we always come to that relationship bringing our natural wisdom and our natural intelligence, even at the level of a relationship with a tantric master or a root guru. We don't park our brain outside the door. We always bring what our innate wisdom to that relationship. So the understanding is we'll have lots of different teachers. Our relationship with each of them will be different. Frequently, it won't be a relationship in which we have the opportunity to sit down one-on-one with that person. Rarely, if at all. I mean, there are many, many people, very sincere practitioners, who see the Dalai Lama as their number one teacher, and even as their root guru, and they've never had a one-on-one session with him. They've only been with him in both from reading his books and from being in an auditorium with 10,000 other people. But the relationship can be that close, even if you don't have the one-on-one time with that person. It's all in what your mind is bringing to the relationship. So you don't necessarily people are not going to the Dalai Lama and say, I want you to be my root guru. It's something that they create from their own side, that relationship. Hold on just a sec. And this involves checking out that person watching them in various situations, not judging them, but analyzing them, because this is a very important relationship as we progress along the path. Typically, the relation becomes, as we progress along the path, the relationships become more serious and there's more vulnerability on our part, so we have to be very careful. Mike, you wanted to say something? Wait for the mic.
If you've taken, refuge with the Rinpoche, which is what I did, I don't know, almost 20 years ago, and that Rinpoche passes away, which he did 2 years ago, and I'm sure that lots of people here who have kind of considered Lama Zopa Rinpoche in that way. How does it change when they die, as far as your relationship with that particular root guru?
Mike talks about taking refuge, which is a set of vows, and we take the vows one time, the refuge vows one time from a teacher, and we're establishing a relationship with that teacher. Now, they may not be our root guru, but there is a relationship that's established there, and they may not even be one of our root important teachers, but there is a relationship there, and that person can die, or we may never see them again. And as Mike says, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, whose picture's to the right of the statue of Atisha, who's was the spiritual director of the FPMT, the worldwide organization that we're part of, died recently. I mean, there's no set answer to how the relationship changes. Personally, I feel like I'm just aware of Lama Zopa and what he taught and what he embodied now as I was before he died. Because I had the good luck to have a long time relationship with him, over 40 years. And the fact that he's not physically present on the other side of the world has not made a whole lot of difference in my relationship with what he embodied, which was the unbroken lineage of the teachings from the historical Buddha, which is the way I related to him. Now, it may be different, okay? Got another question? Yeah.
I've been stewing on this one. Is when you have a root guru and they pass, does your relationship to them continue to, if they reincarnate, does it continue there? Like, for all I know, you could have been a root guru in a past life.
Yeah.
So does that, when they talk about offending them or
I am not qualified to answer that question. That's a good question. I would say, I just based on people I know who saw Lama Yeshe as their root guru, pictured to the left of Atisha, who died 35, almost 40 years ago, and was the founder of the FPMT. There are many of students who see him as their root guru. He died in the mid-'80s. His reincarnation was recognized several years later. They still see Lama Yeshe as they knew him in this lifetime as their root guru. I mean, they have they very much respect and honor his reincarnation, but I'm going to say I don't think they see him as their root guru, okay? Their karma was that that relationship was with Lama Yeshe as he was in that lifetime. That's my interpretation. Now, someone else may say something different, okay? But that's just based on talking to people, okay?
Thank you.
So anyway, just to review what we've talked about so far, first thing is, what qualities do we look for in a teacher? And as always in Tibetan Buddhism, there are lists, and there are a lot of different lists on this, but there's one with 7 qualities I think is useful. If we are looking at someone and saying, is this person suitable to be a teacher? Now, again, if it's just in an academic setting, they may not have any of these qualities. They're not that important, but as we move along the path, they become more important. The first is ethical discipline, Buddhist ethics being not harming others, with your body, speech, and mind. So we see that the teacher has some discipline in that regard. They don't go through this lifetime hurting others by hurting them physically or saying harmful things or even expressing thoughts of harming others. Ethical discipline. The next is a level of concentration. They're able to focus their mind and concentrate. The next is that they have pacified to some degree the negative emotions. The negative emotions being attachment or craving, anger, and ignorance. Ignorance referring to not seeing reality. The ignorance referring to living in a fantasy world. So that to some degree they've pacified those qualities in their mind. They may not have eliminated them completely. The fourth quality that we look for is enthusiasm for teaching and taking joy in teaching. It's not drudgery. It's not something they have to do. Because there are many highly enlightened people who do not teach. They understand that that is not their karma to teach. And you put them in a situation where they have to teach, they may be quite awkward and unhelpful. So that may not be an appropriate person to have a teacher-student relationship with for you. Next one is obvious. They know more about the subject than you do. You wouldn't go to a piano teacher who knew less about playing the piano than you do. Okay, they may not be able to actually do everything that they teach, but they know how to teach it and they understand it. Okay, so if we're looking for a Dharma teacher, we want someone who knows more about the Dharma than we do. Next, their motivation for teaching is to help others. It's not to accumulate wealth. It's not to have power over their students. It's not to look good in the eyes of others, but it's to help. Okay, compassion. And the last is a lack of hypocrisy. They don't claim qualities that they don't have. They don't make themselves look more enlightened or more realized than they actually are. So that's just kind of that would be a description of a perfect teacher if they had mastered all 7 of those, and that's very rare to encounter. But this is kind of a template by which we can measure possible teachers against. It said if we're looking for a really close relationship with a teacher, a possible student root guru relationship, some texts say take at least 3 years to check them out. Other texts say take 7 years to check them out. So it's not something that you walk into Kadampa Center the first time and you have to find your root guru before you leave that afternoon. It's a very gradual process. So those are qualities we look for in the student. And then next, there are qualities we look for in the teacher, And then there are qualities that we as a student should bring to the relationship. And this is a shorter list. There are only 3 of these. So we don't have 7. The first is an open and objective mind, a mind that is not closed or prejudiced, which it doesn't mean that we'll accept anything that's presented to us, but we're open to what the teacher is presenting. We're willing to look at it and judge it against our own experience, set aside our own prejudices, and judge what the teacher has to offer. Second, we bring our innate ability or intelligence to judge what is right and wrong. Okay, what is appropriate and inappropriate. And if the person's behavior or what they're seeing just seems completely inappropriate, we acknowledge that, okay, and realize that this may not be the right place for us. So we don't set aside, we come with an open mind, but we don't come with a stupid mind, okay? We come with an intelligent mind, a mind that knows right and wrong. So we don't set that aside when we walk in the door. And then we bring enthusiasm for the subject. Okay? So an open mind, an intelligent mind, and an enthusiastic mind. If we can bring those three qualities to the relationship, we're doing a really good job. Okay. Any questions or comments here?
Robbie, I have one.
Yes.
You mentioned last week, you used like a metaphor with a pot. Can you go through those again? Because I can't remember
Okay,
exactly
I'm not
how
sure.
it goes.
This is a classic one, and I'm not sure if I got it right. But if we think of our mind as a pot, okay, the pot can be turned upside down, so whatever the teacher pours onto it just rolls off. None of it gets in the pot, okay? That's the closed mind, okay? The pot that's upside down. The next, and I'm not sure, let's see, I'm not sure if they correspond exactly to these qualities. The next one, the pot is turned the right side up, but it's full of holes, okay? It's leaky. So whatever poured into it just flows through and doesn't stay there. We've all been to teachings where our mind was like that, It sounds wonderful while we're in the room and we walk out the door and it's all gone right away. Okay, that's the leaky mind. The third pot is right side up. It doesn't have any holes or cracks in it, but it's dirty. It hasn't been cleaned. And that's bringing a lot of prejudices or preconceptions to the teaching. And then the fourth pot is turned right side up, is clean, has no cracks or holes in it. And that's the mind that can get the benefit from the teachings, that will hold the water when it's poured into it. Okay? Any other questions or comments? Okay. Let's just do a brief meditation on those, on the qualities of the student. A little bit of review meditation. Okay. So establish your posture. Three deep breaths from the abdomen. Mind on the breath for just a minute or two. Now we're just going to think for a minute about each of the three qualities of the student, of an ideal student. And I don't know if any of us are ideal students, but these are qualities we can aspire to and actually develop in our mind. The first is a mind that is open and objective, not closed, not prejudiced. What does that mean? Second quality is a mind that knows the difference between right and wrong, between virtue and non-virtue. And the third quality is a mind that is enthusiastic and interested in what the teacher offers. So these are three qualities that we can actually cultivate in our mind and bring to the relationship we may have with the teacher. An open mind, an intelligent mind, and an enthusiastic mind. And we can relax our concentration. So I wanted to talk a little bit for the few minutes that are remaining about what the relationship, or in some ways, some qualities of the relationship between the teacher and the student. And again, the words guru, lama, teacher, spiritual guide, spiritual mentor are all pretty much the same. Oh, and a phrase, well, the Tibetan word for the relationship between a teacher and student is tenpa, T-E-N-P-A. You can recognize Tibetan words because they're always bump, 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 bump. A little bit harsh, okay? They're not nice and flowing like the Sanskrit words. Tempa, very Tibetan sounding. That describes the ideal relationship between a student and a teacher. Unfortunately, it's been translated as guru devotion, which is a very loaded term and sounds rather cult-like at times if we think about it. And there are lots of other ways of translating it. I frequently go back to Alex Berzin, who was a translator for His Holiness for many years and has been here to Kadampa Center several times. And there's a website called Alex Berzin Archives. And it has his years and years of teachings, and you can just go in and type in a subject and it'll bring up everything he's taught on that subject. He translates, and one of his characteristics is he always disagrees with the traditional translations. He always says they're inaccurate and they're confusing and they're wrong. He translated as as coming close to someone in one's thoughts and actions. Okay? So that you almost can be said to model your thoughts and actions on those of your teacher. Okay, so you're not worshiping them, but you're wanting to become more like them. Not necessarily in every way, but in those qualities that you've identified as worthy of emulation. So that's another way of thinking about it instead of guru devotion. and he also says it's can be translated as building a healthy relationship. Okay, it's not groveling in front of anyone. It's not blindly succumbing to their wishes, but it's having a healthy relationship with those three characteristics that we identified of the student. And in one of his teachings, he tells a story about His Holiness the Dalai Lama when he was young and in the monastery, and two of his, not his root teachers, but there were his two main teachers when he was fairly young, said, let's see, where is it? Said he would sit there and get teachings. He'd sit on the cushion, sit there and get teachings from them. Got wonderful teachings. And he had no problems with identifying with their good qualities and wanting to be more like them and feeling incredibly grateful. But he said when he wasn't in teachings with them, he strongly disagreed with their political views, and he would criticize them. He thought they were wrong on some political views, so he had no problems with that dichotomy. Now, I'm not quite sure how to interpret that, but it's also said that if we see someone as a teacher, at least while we're in the teachings, when we're thinking about the subject, we should concentrate on their good qualities. Okay, which doesn't mean we don't know if they may have some not so good qualities. An example that's given is it's like seeing someone through the window, and we just see them from the waist up. Okay, as if those are their good qualities, but it's like they have a butt and legs down below. We know that, but that's not what we're concentrating on when we see them through the window. Okay, so if we're in a student-teacher relationship, it's always said to be beneficial to concentrate on their good qualities, but not being unaware of any maybe contradictions that may be there. But at least in the terms of receiving the teachings, concentrate on their good qualities. Other things that may characterize the student-teacher relationship, but where are my notes? We support their work, okay? Now this may be, as we mentioned earlier, making offerings, monetary offerings. When we have a visiting teacher like Venerable Robina or Khenso Rinpoche come, there's always an offer to make monetary offerings. Not with the we're very confident that they're not going to take the money and go shopping with it for fancy clothes. Look at what they wear, or jewels, or anything like that. But we know that they'll be using the money to support their work in helping others. So monetary offerings, or we can offer to drive them around. Okay, we can help set up Kadampa Center so they have the opportunity to teach. We can help bring other people to the teachings, but we support them in their work as a teacher. Whatever we can do that's helpful to support that work is part of a healthy student-teacher relationship. We can help them outside of the teachings. You know, there are lots of people who do favors for Geshe Geluk, do shopping for him, cook meals for him, drive him places even though he drives. People find ways to help him in all sort of ways. That's part, as long as it's done out of a wish to help the teacher, that's part of a healthy student-teacher relationship. It doesn't have to be part of it, but that can be part of it. Traditionally, the teacher would have someone who's referred to as their attendant, which is basically, someone who attends to all their needs, but that's a little bit different in the West. And they may, lots of times it involves helping them set up their computers or buy airplane tickets or all these things that they're not real familiar with. Another part of the student-teacher relationship, again, this is the ideal relationship, and it's going to vary, is showing respect. When Geshe Gelik comes into the room, a lot of people will stand because they respect him. Some people will do prostrations, which are completely optional, but as I said earlier, are done as a gesture of respect for him and the tradition that he embodies, not as a way of worshiping him. But we show respect to the teacher and we talk about him or her to others in respectful terms. So respect is a big part of that relationship. Next is, let me just get through this list, then we'll give the mic back to Mike. Next is following their advice. If you ask a guru or a teacher a question, be prepared to accept the answer, okay? Don't ask, I'm not talking about, people asking questions about the teacher, but, people ask Lama Zopo, they'd ask them their most private questions. And if you're not going to respect his advice, don't ask the question, okay? Don't waste their time, for one thing. But if they do give you personal advice, respect that. If they're giving advice here to a lot of people, see if that applies to you. It may not, but it may apply to you. And then it said, anybody know the answer? What's the greatest thing we can do for a teacher? Practice, yeah. Put their teachings into practice, okay? Follow their advice about our spiritual path, okay? If they recommend reading a text or doing a meditation practice or this or that, that's the greatest gift we can give to a teacher, more than any kind of monetary offering or any kind of work we do it for them. That's what they want to see most of all, that people get the benefit of what they're teaching. So these are all parts of a healthy relationship between a teacher and a student. Let's go to Mike. You had a comment or a question?
Yeah, it's a kind of difficult question.
Mm-hmm.
I came diving into the deep end with the Dharma like 45 years ago, was it?
Mm-hmm.
78.
Yeah.
With a teacher that I felt like in his presence, it was like a warmth and a sense of well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And his name was Rinpoche Changyun Trungpa.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came upon reading from the readings, not too recently, but decades ago, of Geshe Michael Roach, whom I just love his writing,
Mm-hmm.
his ability to teach the Dharma. But both of these individuals were, say, ethically challenged or morally flawed in some way, at least in the way we think in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, how do you, again, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater
Yeah.
sort of thing, of course I'm not going to dismiss the teachings. They're precious, and the Dharma is not to be affected by that. But what about the relationship with a teacher like that, whom you feel like, I don't know, maybe disappointed, let's say?
Yeah, that's very common. A lot of people who are very qualified Dharma teachings and very gifted Dharma teachings are flawed human beings. Second quality of the student, our knowledge of what's right and wrong. So this is where, one, concentrating on their good qualities, what we got from them, what we learned from them, being grateful for that, being respectful, but it involves using our intelligence and sometimes pulling back, saying, I got this from this relationship. I acknowledge that person's wisdom and I'm very thankful for that, but this is not the teacher for me as I move along my path to continue that relationship with. But I have no right answer about that because it's something a lot of people go through. They find teachers that are flawed human beings. And sometimes the immediate reaction is to turn on them and criticize them and even attack them. And that's generally considered not to be very helpful for your own mind. I think we have a couple comments, yeah.
You're just reminding me of something that I read in the readings about we're flawed, and so Buddha can't appear in his true nature because we would not be able to understand it. So he has to appear to us as a flawed human being.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we concentrate on the good qualities
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and try to not focus on the bad.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of?
Yeah, that's a more advanced level, yeah, but we understand that we may not have the karma to encounter perfect teachers. Okay, when we have, when a relationship is problematic like that, we're bringing our own karma to it. It's not entirely that person out there, but it's also us in our mind. Yeah, so it involves, knowing right from wrong, but not being judgmental in a negative sort of way. I think we had a comment here.
Well, I was just going to comment that I think perhaps maybe it's part of the teaching, right? In a way, it's something that you can learn from.
You can learn from, yeah.
And grow on your spiritual path.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah, definitely. But it's a very common experience, yeah. Yeah, go through life and see everyone as a Buddha.
You can learn what not
who's
to
teaching me what I need to learn. It may not be true, but it's a good attitude to have, yeah. Okay, it may not be accurate. I have another comment here.
So I understand that like the Buddha, when he figured it out, when he wanted to depart from his life as a prince and whatnot, he abandoned his family in some sense. So would the ideal teacher of some sort have done the same steps? Because would not like having a family be considered a distraction from his teachings? So like, how do you decide on that?
Everybody's different, okay? You don't have to model your life on exactly what the Buddha did, okay? And remember, the Buddha was not enlightened when he left his family. He was looking for enlightenment, and he had some wisdom, and he said, if I want to make any progress on my spiritual path, I'm going to have to go off. But we're all different, so we don't have to follow that path exactly. We have to, a lot of people, or not some in the West feel that becoming monks or nuns is the best thing for them to do, is the way, best spiritual path for them. Other people say staying with my family, having a job, interacting with others is the way of my spiritual path. Everybody's different.
So when we're looking for a teacher, like, is it technically in any way better to look for somebody who's gone on that journey, or does it not it doesn't really matter if they?
I don't think it really matters, typically in the Tibetan tradition, most of the teachers are monastics, but there's some who are not. Okay, it's just that a lot of them found that in this lifetime, that was the way to make progress on their spiritual path. But I don't think you should say that's an absolute requirement for a teacher, okay, that they be a monastic.
Hi.
Yeah.
So I'm not really knowledgeable on Buddhism, but I did want to know, as far as you had said, one of the qualities to look for in a teacher was to pacify negative emotions. So would Buddhism be the type of like religion or teaching where if you're healing would be the place to go to? Because pacifying negative emotions, is that healing?
Well, first thing is to be aware, just to talk about Buddhism in general, not about teachers. First step is first to be aware of them. Most of the time, we're not even aware of the negative thoughts, okay? So we identify them and accept that we all have negative thoughts and positive thoughts. We begin to understand that the negative thoughts make us unhappy and make us hurt others. So we develop a sincere wish to be free of those. Okay, which doesn't mean a power of positive thing where you suppress them or ignore them. Okay, the ultimate goal in Buddhism this comes into class in karma. The reason we have negative thoughts is because we've created the cause for them. So we want to stop creating the cause for negative thoughts. Okay, so they don't even arise in our mind stream, that we just have wonderful positive thoughts. That seems a little ridiculous to most of us, but the Buddha said that is possible in this lifetime. If you're willing to really work with your mind, stop creating the causes for negative thoughts. Okay, so it's not, when it says pacify, I'm not talking about pushing them down or scooting them under a rug or pretending they're not there. It means getting to a state where they don't even arise in our mind stream, that we've completely, it said we've reached a, what's the word? I'm trying to say, not cessation, where we've reached, where we get to the point where those thoughts never even arise. Okay? So that's a long-term process, okay? But the first step is to be aware of them and maybe just not act out on them. Be aware, say it's there, but I'm not going to scream at that person. I'm going to acknowledge that that thought came up in my mind stream, but I'm not going to act out on it, okay? Okay, so I think time is up. That was a good discussion, yeah. It's always a loaded subject, yeah, but thank you, Mike, for bringing that up, because it's an experience a lot of people will have, and we have to bring our own wisdom and intelligence to that situation. But, you know, it's said that, you know, the worst thing you can do is turn on the teacher, criticize them, try to hurt them back. Okay, just remove yourself from the relationship and not sugarcoat it, but acknowledge that you did get benefit from that relationship and move on. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to Linda and our assistants, yeah, and Chris, who's not here tonight. And again, like I said, the module on death and dying is a great one, and it really kind of gets into a lot of, it sounds gloomy, and it's not at all. It's a very happy kind of module, and it's really some real key teachings. So, and Steep's a great teacher and is a very serious meditator and practitioner. So recommend that, and we're done.
Yeah, thanks so much,
Okay,
Robbie.
thank you, everyone.
And, we'll see you for Death and Rebirth, July 24th.
Yes.
Thank you, Robbie and Linda.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.